Welcome back to the Xan Shoob College Football Podcast channel here on YouTube. We are diving through here with the Pac-12 win totals. If you haven't watched our first video of these teams on the left side of the graphic, go ahead and check that out. But now we're going to be doing the teams in the bottom half of the Pac-12 in terms of win total lines. So if you're not familiar, Xan here, he will be in the X column. ZKS, our guest here, he will be in the Z column, and I will be in the S column. So Oregon State, let's kick it off. They have a win total of 6 games. Xan, you're up first. What's your take on the Beavers?
Well, let's just break down Oregon State real quick. Last year, they were 95th in defensive efficiency. Not very good. But let's look at another thing. I expect improvement, and here's why. Only one of their projected starters this season is not a junior. Everyone is at least a senior, except for one guy. So they have loads and loads of just guys who are experienced in their system, and that should come to a better defense this year. How much so, it still remains to be seen, but I can't see it being any worse than it was last year. I should see some modest improvement, which is really what the Oregon State Beavers need. And they were 23rd in offensive efficiency. Very shocking, very shocking. I think Chance Nolan actually has a good opportunity this year to really break out. I mean, he had a basic 2-to-1 ratio. You know how I am with those QB ratios. I'm a big guy here's why. Let me go off on a small tangent. Here's why I love those ratios, guys. Here's why I love those ratios. What wins you games? Scoring. What loses you games? Turnovers. When your ratio to scoring versus committing a turnover is really high, chances are you're winning games for your team. So that's why I'm really high on those ratios. So you'll often hear me mention here on the Xan Shoob podcast those ratios. So back off the tangent, let's look at Oregon State. They are very quietly a good team, guys. Very quietly a good team. They were number 1 in offensive line yards last year, which basically means that they had one of the best rushing offensive lines in all of college football. They were also 15th in sack rate, which means that they protected the quarterback really well. In all metrics, Oregon State is a top 15 offensive line. They're absolutely stout. You would never guess that. Whenever I looked over the data, I was completely shook. I was completely shocked that Oregon State was this good on the offensive front. And to me, that's something that spells a lot of success. I mean, we all know that you win and die in the trenches. And so Oregon State's got a good thing going for them there. And just because of that, I think their running back, Deshaun Fenwick, is a strong candidate for a 1,000-yard season this year. I think he's going to pop off, especially when he averaged 5.7 yards per carry last year. On less than 100 carries, he's going to have his moment this year. That's a name to definitely be aware of. He's going to be a 1,000-yard rusher. And then let's just look at head coach Jonathan Smith. He came in 2018 from Washington. He's done an okay job to this point. I mean, like nothing exemplary. I mean, he's doing well with what he has, in my estimation, for Oregon State. You have Trent Bray over there, who's promoted from linebacker coach to DC. And then you've got the OC, Brian Lindgren. But let me just point out, let me just go back to the offensive line here, guys. One more tangent. Their offensive line coach, Jim, I'm probably going to botch his pronunciation, but it's Jim Melkalzik. That man deserves a raise with what they're dealing with over there, with the way Oregon State recruits and the way that they are blocking over there. 100%. Like that's just amazing.
I was surprised to see that too. And I was looking at the line yards and all that. Number 100%. 1 in line yards and power success rate, that O-line. Impressive.
Exactly. And this is exactly why I think they're going to have a good rushing attack, because they already have a guy who's, in a small sample size, proven to be an effective rusher. And their quarterback is now 1 year experience into their system, and he's only going to improve. Now, let's look at the schedule, guys. This is always an important thing we harp on. This is the most important thing with win totals. Let's look at Oregon State. They have a pretty tough non-con. They've got Boise to start out, but luckily that game's at home. I still think they lose that game to Boise. They've got Fresno State, which, guys, I think they're going to beat Fresno State. At
Fresno State, though.
I know. But think about this. Fresno just lost all their coordinators and their head coach. Fresno also got creamed by Boise last year, lost to Oregon, lost to Hawaii. In addition to that, they really struggled against UNLV and Nevada, barely beat those very wishy-washy teams. And Oregon State is a tier above those teams, Shoob. Let's take some of your terminology, my friend. The tier here is that Oregon State is better than some of those teams that Fresno was really struggling with when they had everyone there. Yes, they keep Jake Haener, but at the same time, they are losing all of their coordinators and their head coach. And I think that just spells L for Fresno. And so for me, I think Oregon State's going to steal that game. Montana State's a win. I think they come 2-1 out of the non-con. And then they have USC, Utah right after that. Those are losses. Let's just get that out of the way. Stanford, probably a win. Wazoo, they have at home, so they can potentially beat Wazoo, but that one is a toss-up. And then they have Colorado. And then luckily for them, they have a bye week against a Washington team who I'm a coin flip on. But ultimately, that bye week I think is going to help them, and that Washington game is going to be a toss-up. Then they've got Cal at home. That's a win. Arizona State, as we just alluded to, a late season matchup against Arizona State when the bottom has already fallen off of that program. I love it. Give me a win for Oregon State right there. And then Oregon, that's a toss-up to me too at this point in time for the same reasons. Coordinators, they have nothing but new coordinators and head coaching schemes over there, and Oregon State plays Oregon well. It's a rivalry. They want to beat those guys. And so when I look at this holistically, I really like Oregon State, guys. I really like them for at least 7 wins. I think Oregon State, I think their floor is 6. And if their floor is 6 and you're sitting here betting at 6, then I call it, for me, it's like a little bit of push insurance. Now, it's not guaranteed to me. I would be so shocked if they won 5 games or less. 6, 7 is where I'm at. So I think it's a safe bet to go on the over, and you're not going to lose any money. Minimally, you get your money back. Give me the Beavs to have a good season.
I'm with you. Let's build that dam. I'm in push to over, but it's one of those scenarios where I'm more confident in hitting the over, and I'm very happy to have that push protection, kind of how I felt with their arch rival Oregon in the other video. Let me just talk up Jonathan Smith for 1 minute to elaborate, just like you did. His first year, they go 2-10, then they go 5-7. 2020 didn't happen in the Pac-12, if you ask me. Then they win 7 games. Get to the first bowl game since 2013, since when they had Brandon Cooks. That is an incredible accomplishment at Oregon State, a university that historically cares more about, the baseball program and has seen more success on the diamond and the gridiron. So for them to be taking this leap is just awesome for their program, the state of Oregon, and the Pac-12. And their losses all last year, they were all competitive games. Even the ones by double digits, they lost, I think, 3 by double digits. And if we want to include that bowl game, sure. But, I mean, there's only so much stock you can put in bowl games nowadays, unfortunately. I'm with you with the schedule. You split Boise or Fresno. Just one of those two. Find a way with one of those two. You beat Montana State. USC early in Corvallis. I alluded to this in the other video. That could be a sneaky upset. I wouldn't bet money on it. I don't think it'll happen, but the possibility is truly there. I mean, if they could beat those OG Mark Sanchez teams, there's no reason to think they can't beat a USC team trying to find their way.
100% with you on that, ZKS. Just because it is early season, I do think Oregon State could sneak up on USC there. Do I think they'll win? No, but I totally see the potential. 100% with you.
No, I mean, they beat them last year, for goodness sake. Again, whole different USC team, so we cannot at all, use that as a comparison. But it's just proof that they've done it before, and he's going to instill that and remind them that they can compete with anybody in the conference. So still moving on, Utah and Oregon, that's brutal. But again, in rivalry games, you just don't know. Oregon, this is not your Marcus Mariota, Chip Kelly. This is not the machine that they were in those early 2010s. And Oregon State beat them. Again, I don't put stock in the COVID year, but for Oregon State to beat your rival, regardless of the season, that is some kind of confidence booster. But I still do stick to the theory that when a rival beats you consistently, that does stick in your head. But I still think, again, rivalries end of the year are mostly toss-ups unless it's the game between Michigan and Ohio State usually. But moving forward, I also like on Oregon State's schedule just having Cal, Stanford, Colorado, and ASU. I love that for the Beavs. And I
especially late, man. Especially ASU late after the bottom's already fallen off. Give me that win, man.
Yeah. Worst case 3-1, and I'd give the 1 to Stanford. I like this team reaching a bowl game. I like them to hit the over. Go Beavs. Build the dam. I'm really excited to see how they progress in the Smith era. I love it.
So I'm with you guys on this. This is a consensus across the board over on Oregon State. And if you're watching on YouTube, when we record, I know that our boxes are going to be in the top right corner of the screen. Since there's 3 of us this time, I'm pretty sure that the graphic here for Oregon State's going to get cut off. But if you guys can't see, we both have the 3 green arrows over on Oregon State. But Xan, you already mentioned Chance Nolan. Him returning is certainly a good piece for this offense. He wasn't necessarily the best quarterback, not putting up eye-popping numbers, but he put up pretty decent numbers last year. He was a solid quarterback. You mentioned the offensive efficiency being number 25, top 25 in the country. That's pretty good. A lot of surprising metrics here for this Oregon State offense based off last year. And as far as the defense, we haven't really hit on the defense yet. Defense last year wasn't really that good. They were 95th in schedule adjusted defensive efficiency. However, they returned 8 starters. So you would think that the defense probably could be a little bit better. They have a new defensive coordinator, Trent Bray, who was promoted internally from the linebacker coach. So maybe a new play caller defensively could help the defense take a little bit of a step forward. And the secondary returns a lot of solid players. I think their secondary will be the strength of this defense. And overall, like I said, I think it'll be a little bit better. And you guys already hit the schedule. I'm with you guys that I think Boise and Fresno, those are classic toss-up games. I think they split those. Conference schedule, though, that's tougher. That's why this win total is down at 6, because this is a quality Oregon State team, believe it or not. Jonathan Smith's done a good job. That stretch where they got USC, then they got at Utah, at Washington, and Oregon. They play all the tougher teams in the Pac-12. So I think this team should be able to get to a bowl game, and I think that 7-5 is a little more likely than 5-7. I like the Beavs to get to the bowl game, and Jonathan Smith, it was tough going to get off the ground his first few years, but he got this team to a bowl game last year for the first time as head coach, and I think that he will repeat. I think they get to a bowl game again this year. So overs across the board for Oregon State.
100% on the consensus. I like it. Let's build the dam, guys.
Build that dam.
So now moving down here to Cal. Cal sitting with a win total of 5.5. Justin Wilcox, the head coach, he enters his 6th season at Cal, and they really lose a lot of guys off last year's team. They're 103rd in returning production in the country. Last season, they were 5-7. However, they were 0-4 in one possession games. So this was a Cal team that probably had a worse record than what their power rating probably would have suggested. Offensively, they got a new quarterback, Jack Plummer from Purdue. He transfers in. Jack Plummer will be the new passing slinger there. I think that he will be a slight passing upgrade over Chase Garbers. However, Garbers could run the ball a little bit. Plummer's a pocket passer. The downside about this offense, however, is they only return 3 starters, and they lose a lot of their top skill position players off last year's team. Even with Plummer at quarterback, I think this offense probably takes a little bit of a step back. Defensively, Cal was pretty solid last year, but they only returned 4 starters. Cal returns the fewest amount of starters of any team in the Pac-12. And I will say, of all the defensive players that Cal has, I do like Lou Magia-Hearns. He's a cornerback. He's a stud. He's a true sophomore. I think he will be a good player for Cal. But overall, I think this defense probably takes another step back. So if the offense and defense takes a step back, I think that's pretty reflective of how I feel this is going to go for Cal. Scheduling wise, I think probably they go 2-1 in the non-conference slate. The problem with Cal is that their schedule is rough. They draw all the tougher teams in the Pac-12. So it's a tough go for Cal, tough draw. And again, when you get to this point in the win totals, when you're looking at the middle tier to lower tier teams, you're looking for winnable games at home. I just don't really see many of those. And I think that 5 to 6 wins is probably about right. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Cal gets to 6 wins, sneaks to a bowl game, but I'm going to say that 5 wins or less is a little bit more likely. So I'm going to go under.
Good point, Shoob. The Golden Bears. Ever since that COVID season and all the ramifications of that, they have been trending downwards. And let me just do a brief history. Wilcox first year, 5-7. Then you make a bowl game, 7-6. Then you go 8-5. You win the Red Box Bowl. And I know they parade that trophy around. They're very proud of that dang Red Box Bowl win. Then COVID happens. Season gets shortened. Nobody cares. You go 1-3, but it's COVID. We don't care. But then you go 5-7. And all of a sudden, the kitchen is getting really hot. And what was looking like a great trajectory is starting to be this slow decline, which just like that can be a free fall. Wilcox, if he makes it through 2022, which is very possible, he's going to enter 23 on the hot seat. So either way, he loses his job potentially this year, but if the bottom falls out, or he's on the hot seat. Now into the actual on the field. Shoob, the one thing with the schedule I was hoping you'd say, dude, they play Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They got to go play Notre Dame. You want to talk about an absolutely brutal draw, automatic L. That's not helping your case at all in the non-con. In fact, the only 5 viable wins that I personally see, UC Davis, UNLV, maybe, Arizona, Colorado, Stanford, and maybe they get lucky and they snipe Washington at home. But I truly do not see this team getting over 5.5. That's why I'm on the under. And I also want to say, from a personnel perspective, their only legitimate wide receiver threat, at least how I was seeing it, is junior receiver Jeremiah Hunter. He caught 21 balls for 388 yards and a touchdown in 9 games last year. This guy is going to need to step up along with the other, it looked like 10 receivers on their roster if Plummer is going to have anybody to throw the ball to. So I'm under on the Bears this year.
Good point, ZKS. And just to kind of piggyback off your wide receivers, they actually do have 2 4-star wide receivers who are pretty young guys that are projected to start this year. So Cal fans are actually pretty high on them. It's J. Michael Sturdivant and Mevin Anderson. And those guys, they're hoping can, increase their production offensively. But there's a lot of things I don't like about this Cal team, guys. A lot of things I don't like. So Jack Plummer, the transfer, he has no starting experience, and he's a redshirt senior. He's a redshirt senior. He doesn't have any starting experience. So it's like you have a senior freshman starting at quarterback for you. In addition to that, you've got inexperienced wide receivers, like you just mentioned, ZKS. Their lead guy, less than 400 yards as like his best career year, less than 400 yards. And then when we look over here at their pass blocking, their offensive line, as far as pass block is concerned, is terrible, absolutely terrible. Plummer's going to be running for his life. It just has red flag written all over it for me. And for me, for Wilcox, if they get this under, I think he's gone. And so for me, I really do think that this is the last season that we're going to see him. And when you allude back to the schedule, UC Davis, UNLV, I don't even know about Arizona, man. I don't even know if they can beat Arizona. I think Arizona's kind of sneaky this year. I think, honestly, Cal, aside from another team, I don't want to spoil my picks here, but Cal, aside from another team that we haven't talked about yet, might be the worst team in the Pac-12 this year. I really do think so. Like I truly do not see this team winning more than 3 games. I think that if that line was at 4, I would still be like potentially willing to go under. I just don't see it. I don't see it. I'm a heavy under on Cal, guys. I'm with you guys. We are 100% in agreement on this one. I'm just not a Cal guy this year.
Wow. You think they could win only up to 3 games?
So I'm looking at their schedule, man. I'm looking at the schedule. I'm thinking UC Davis, UNLV, Colorado. Okay, I'll give you those. Maybe Stanford, maybe Arizona. Like they're some of the bottom feeders in the conference. But at the same time, man, I do not believe in this team at all. Having a senior quarterback who is basically a freshman in my estimation, because here's another point about the senior quarterback. He's a transfer. So he hasn't grown in this system. He hasn't been in this system for a few seasons. So everything is new to him. This is another thing of why I say he's a senior freshman. He's a redshirt senior / freshman. Like he has freshman experience at this point. And in addition to that, they're inexperienced at wide receiver. They're bad pass blocking. They lost some of their defensive prowess. I just don't see it, guys. I really don't. And then I look over at some of the other teams that they have to play on their schedule who might be a little sneaky and that we aren't giving maybe enough credit to, or that Vegas isn't getting enough credit to. And we'll get into that as we move down the line. But man, I just don't see it. Maybe 4 wins, absolute max. I can't see them getting more than 4.
Wow. All right. So that's a hefty under from Xan on Cal. I'm more of a lean, but yeah, this Cal team, especially if Wilcox is on the hot seat, this could be a team where the bottom falls out, kind of similarly to Arizona State. So now let's move down here to Washington State. Wazoo, their line is sitting at an even 5 games. Xan, you're up first. What's your take on the Cougs?
My God, guys, I love the Cougs. Oh man, I don't want to spoil it, but this might be my best bet, guys. Like the Cougs at 5? Are you kidding me? The Cougs at 5 wins? That is just downright disrespectful. That is downright disrespectful, especially when you look at their team, guys. Let's just go over their team. They got Incarnate Ward, transfer quarterback, Cam Ward, 4,600 yards passing, 47 touchdowns, 10 picks. That's almost a 5-to-1 ratio. You guys realize how much I love my ratios. And like when you score 5 times for every turnover that you commit, you're going to win a lot of football games, especially when you're throwing 4,600 yards. When I was looking at this, guys, I noticed that Wazoo runs a spread offense to 4 wide receivers, and they're going to have this gunslinger coming in at quarterback. I was like, is Mike Leach still there? I smell Mike Leach. But no, Mike Leach is nowhere to be found. He's over there in Mississippi ringing cowbells. But I look at this team and some downsides to them. There's not a lot of proven commodities at the running back position. But I don't think that's going to be an issue for these guys. I think they're just going to be, again, I think they're going to be like a Mike Leach type of team without Mike Leach. It's going to be really interesting. They've got a 4-star tight end who's projected to start, Andre Dollar. He's another guy that they're very high on over there. Xan Shoob is young, and he's been showing a lot of promise. His stats aren't really reflected, but he is poised for a breakout year with a quarterback like this. And then the O-line was middle tier. I mean, 47th in like pass rate protection. So they got to protect Cam. That's going to be like what kind of determines how successful they can be. But Shoob, ZKS, 25th in defensive efficiency, 25th. And they are 10 of their 11 starters are going to be at least seniors or redshirt seniors or grad transfers. That is so much on their defense that they have returning. And I mean, there's just so much experience there, and it's hard not to like it. Another big point that I know you guys are probably thinking about right now is bringing over Incarnate Ward's head coach to be the OC. And that's kind of what brought Cam Ward over. And we're talking about Eric Morris over here, who comes over and brings this man. And that's big. Absolutely love this. I love this so much. This is why I am so high on the over. This is why I am flying high over the moon. Like when we go back, and I was talking about how I like this team, I don't like this team based upon their head coaching situation, their coordinators. When it comes to your quarterback, if you bring their offensive coordinator over with you, he doesn't have to learn a new playbook. He doesn't have to learn a new system. He's already acclimated and knows how to lead people and teach the system rather than having to pick it up on his own. And so that is going to allow Cam Ward to be so comfortable in this offense. And we all know if your quarterback is comfortable, there's a lot of success to be had, and Cam Ward is a baller. So I think Jake Dickert's first season at HC is going to be a very good one for them. I really, man, like their line at 5, I am just so shocked. I'm so shocked, guys, because I can see them being a 7 to 8 win team, easy. 7 to 8 wins, wow. I could easily see it. 5 wins, I think, is absolute downright disrespectful. And then let me just go over their schedule real fast. Idaho, that's a win. Wisconsin, I don't think they'll win that. But at the same time, if Graham Mertz continues to struggle and they can't put points on the board, I think this offense will be prolific enough to challenge Wisco and potentially beat Wisco, especially early season. Colorado State, that's a win. Oregon, you guys know I'm not as high on Oregon this year, and that's also an early season game. I think they can beat Oregon. That's a toss-up, but I think they can beat Oregon. Cal, you know how I feel about Cal. They're going to beat Cal. USC, I think they'll lose. Oregon State, toss-up. But then they get their bye week right before Utah. That is so key, guys, because Utah is going to be, arguably, other than USC, the toughest opponent that they have to play. If anyone can snipe Utah, I think this team can snipe Utah because they're coming off a bye week to prepare for Utah. Granted, I still think they lose the game. I will say that right now. I still think Utah wins. But man, I think Wazoo is going to give them quite a dogfight in that game. I don't think it's going to be an easy one for Utah. And then, of course, I think they'll beat Stanford. They get Arizona State late in the season, guys. And we already reiterated how important it is to get Arizona State late in the season, how much of an advantage that is. And then you get Arizona, probably a win. And then you get Washington, which I think is a toss-up as well. So 100%, man, 7 to 8 wins for me. Give me the Cougs. Like, I am all in on the Cougs.
All in. ZKS, how about you?
I like Jake Dickert. Let me start there. From a personnel perspective, bringing in Cam Ward's coach is absolutely brilliant. And I think it's going to help utilize this offense in ways they haven't seen since, as Xan said, the Leach era. Dickert, he takes over after Olovich has to step down. I'm not going to get into the circumstances, but you get a coaching turnover in the middle of the season. And he still finishes 3-2 in the regular season with a 2-point loss to a very decent BYU team. And then on the road, you lose to Oregon only by 2 touchdowns. I mean, in that circumstance, I consider that, I guess, a moral victory of sorts, something to build off of, at least. For me, I'm looking at their schedule as well as Xan, and I mean, Idaho, Colorado State, you can chalk that up. I'm on the over here, so let's get that out of the way. I'm all for the Cougs here. Um, I think they could beat both Zona schools, but even if you split I mean, well, definitely Arizona State. Arizona. Depending on when you get the Wildcats, but for this exercise, you beat either one or both of them. Cal at home, that's a dub. I want to see them, and I think it's possible they can get me an upset between the Oregon, Utah, USC matchups. Utah is intriguing to me because not only the bye, but Pac-12 weeknight games, those are a prime recipe for upsets. And Washington State themselves has done it. I vividly remember when they beat a top 5 USC on a Thursday night. So it is very possible, maybe not probable, but possible that with Utah coming in the Pullman in October on a Thursday night, heck, October 27th, it's spooky season, Halloween. It is potentially possible that Cam Ward goes off and he downs the Utah Utes in Pullman for their biggest win of the year, which easily then helps you clear this over of 5. And I even think with Washington, as high as I am on them this year, Cam Ward, Jake Dickert going into that game in the Apple Cup, it could be, like Xan said, a toss-up, like the over on the Cougs. They're going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. I'm so excited to watch Cam Ward.
Goes without saying, there's a good amount of upside with Cam Ward at quarterback. I'm really excited to see what he can do. And it was pretty amazing that of all the places that he went, he could have gone a few places, I'm sure. And he went to Wazoo, very interesting destination there for Cam Ward. I'm excited to see what this team can do. And you guys are right. If there's going to be one of those middle to lower tier teams, the Pac-12 that pulls off, those big upsets and picks off a USC or an Oregon or a Utah, Washington State's probably that team. Maybe Oregon State, but I think Washington State is that team that probably maybe loses a game they shouldn't lose, but also beats a couple big dogs. I could totally see that happening. So you guys covered just about everything with Wazoo. The offensive line still is a big concern with me. I'm going to say right here and right now, I'm on the over as well. You have to go over with the upside with Cam Ward. You have to. You can't go under here. However, I'm not quite as adamant as Xan is, but I think the offensive line is still has a bit of a question mark surrounded by it. It could be a bit of a problem. We'll see how that goes this season. And then as far as the defense, like you highlighted, Xan, they were surprisingly very solid last year. And I like that they have a lot of upperclassmen on that defense. Non-con, I mean, goes without saying, 2-1 is the best case. As of right now, I checked, they're projected to be around a 14 to 17 point underdog at Wisconsin. For as much as I like Washington State, I think in week 2, it would certainly put them on the map. If you want to say Washington State gets put on the map and people find out who Cam Ward is, the casuals figure out who Cam Ward is, as if they go and beat Wisconsin and Madison. I don't see that happening, though, especially early in the season. I do like, however, that late in the season, they got Cal at home, which, again, a beatable team that they got at home. And they also got Arizona State. We said it multiple times. The teams that got Arizona State late in the season, that's certainly an advantage. And they also have them at home. I'm with you guys. I think, obviously, bowl game upside with Wazoo. I think they can get to 6 wins, maybe even upside for more. I'm not super confident in this like Xan is. I don't know how confident you are, ZKS, but I'm giving a very, not a massive, but a solid lean to the over.
If I had to put a number on it, 6-6. I don't think they blow it out of the water, but I think they win more than 5 games for sure.
Give me 7-5 or 8-4, guys. I'm high on the Cougs.
I like it. I like that bold prediction. If you could get an alt line on Wazoo's win total,
I would take it. Honestly, I really do feel confident in this team this year.
All right, so now we're going to move down here to Stanford. Stanford, their win total. It seems like the Pac-12, usually you have teams that are very clustered, but in the Pac-12, especially this side of the graphic here, it's like down by 0.5 by every team progressively. So it's very tiered here. But Stanford's sitting at a win total of 4.5. I'll kick it off here with the Cardinal. They went 3-9 last year. This was not a good season for Stanford in 2021. However, they are 7th in the entire country in returning production. So that's obviously a very good thing. Offensively, Tanner McKee, their quarterback, he has some NFL buzz. Tanner McKee, I was pretty surprised about that. he put up rather mediocre numbers. He seems to be like Will Levis in a sense of the Pac-12 because he's a guy that's not putting up the greatest of numbers, but he's getting some NFL buzz because of his size and his arm, which, hey, he could be that guy maybe in the NFL down the road. But as a college player, I'm very skeptical.
Shoob, 100% when I was looking at this team, I thought the same exact thing. This reminds me of Will Levis, 100%.
Right. I will say, though, that there's a pretty decent chance this offense improves. They have to because they returned 10 out of 11 starters offensively, 10 out of 11. They have to be better than they were last year. The offensive line, especially for them, was terrible. Think about that. A Stanford offensive line was awful. If I'm not mistaken, they were bottom 5 in the entire FBS in line yards. That's not very good.
126, Shoob, out of 130.
That's not very good.
And their sack rate was 108. They're terrible.
Stanford's known for having running backs like Christian McCaffrey and Bryce Love and Toby Gerhardt. And you're telling me
throwback.
Yeah. And you're telling me that this program, David Shaw, come on, this offensive line has to be better. That's just not in Stanford's DNA. But moving forward here, the defense, it could be a problem. They only returned 4 starters, and the defense already really wasn't that good last year. That could be a problem. Then their schedule, non-con. You got to go at Notre Dame, and they scheduled BYU. I'm fairly high on BYU. I think BYU is a better team. BYU probably beats them, even though Stanford's got them at home. And then you look at their Pac-12 draw. I couldn't think of a worse possible Pac-12 scheduling draw than what Stanford's got. They got to play USC. They got to go at Washington, at Oregon, at UCLA, at Utah. Yikes. That's just 6-7 losses already there in the bag that I listed. I can't say this team's going to confidently go over. I got to go under. David Shaw, I'm surprised David Shaw's still there, to be honest. I know they love David Shaw there, but with this schedule, I don't see how it can be good this year for him. And hey, as far as the fade draft, if David Shaw gets fired, that'd be an extra couple points for me. I'm not going to root for that, obviously, but I'm just very surprised to see how quickly that this program has fallen off. This used to be a program that got to a New Year's Six Bowl every single year. That's what Stanford used to be. So that's what I have to say about the Cardinal.
Shoob, I just want to read off some numbers. 11-2, 12-2, 11-3, skip a year, 12-2. From 2011 to 2015, those were records of the Stanford Cardinal. This team played in 3 Rose Bowls, won 2 of them. Played in the Fiesta Bowl, lost that. Pretty sure that was the Oak State one. Andrew Luck, kicker, missed a kick. A good win for the Pokes. Anyways, it is amazing how far this team has gone. Now, it's been gradual. It hasn't been just a straight free fall. And again, one of those where COVID did not help the situation. Since 2019, 4-8, then 3-9 last year. I don't think another horrid season gets Shaw fired when he's been there for this long. Built your program, put guys in the NFL. But as much as I like and respect David Shaw, and it's great that he's got all these guys coming back, but what's that matter if everybody's coming back from a 3-9 team? I mean, how much better can the unit get? And I've been tracking the coaching carousel. Shaw's not really been making anything, at least that I've been aware of, to really change up the personnel there. And McKee, that's great that he's coming back, the experience there. I mean, I was looking at his numbers. In 12 games, he threw 7 picks, but those were only across 3 games. He had multi-pick games playing ASU, of all teams, Washington, and Cal. So, yes, that gives some encouragement there, having McKee back. But for me, like you said, it's the schedule. So put me on the under for the Cardinal. I just don't see them winning 5 games, and that's factoring in if they were to upset USC early in the season. The only easy games that I see on the schedule personally are Colgate, our good friends over at Arizona State, and Cal. So I do hope that Shaw can keep his job, but I just don't see him at all winning 5 games this year. Not with this team.
At least last year, Stanford, that was their highlight of the season, was beating USC in week 2 and getting Clay Helton fired, but then proceeding to win only 2 games the entire rest of the year.
Well, the other one was Oregon. So it's like,
they beat Oregon too.
If you're going to get the wins,
beat the top dogs and lose to everyone else.
You're telling me they beat Oregon and USC. How did I forget about that? That doesn't make any sense. But
That Pac-12 after dark, man.
Pac-12 after dark, man, it'll do some things to you.
You know, ZKS, you made a really good point. I know Shoob was talking about David Shaw potentially being fired, and ZKS, you mentioned how you don't think that's going to be the case. I'm actually kind of with you on that. ZKS, I think even if they have a bad season, hit this under 4-3 wins, I think David Shaw is going to stay. I really don't see them getting rid of him. If you look at his overall coaching record holistically since he went to Stanford, he's 93-45. His record is 93-45. That is fantastic. And just as you guys mentioned, I feel like people forget because the last 3 seasons have been so bad. It's kind of diluted his reputation. But before that, 2011 to 2018, they were in 4 NY6 bowls, as ZKS mentioned, and they won 2 of them. And that's no small feat, especially with what David Shaw is working with, okay? So David Shaw probably has one of the hardest jobs in all of FBS because Stanford has academic standards.
That's true.
Stanford's academic standards prevent him from recruiting in so many ways. So Stanford, I don't think Stanford understands just how great they could be. Truly, I think David Shaw is a great coach. I really do. And I don't understand why they're handcuffing the man. If Stanford would lower, I understand Stanford's a great school. But for the sake of their program and to maybe be more competitive and to bring in those dollar signs, if they were willing to lower their academic standards to help David Shaw bring in some more premier talent, they could easily do it. Stanford would have no problem recruiting at the upper echelon level, and Stanford would be up there. But the problem is here, and this is why I don't think they'll fire David Shaw, is they know they're handcuffing David Shaw. They know they have these standards. They know that David Shaw is working with one hand tied behind his back. And despite that, he's still had a very successful tenure over there. So I think what's going to happen ultimately is they're going to give him maybe another year or two, assuming they get the under this year. Another year or two, I think they're going to give to David Shaw because, again, they love him over there. And for good reason. He's got a great history with them. Now, off to my actual win total, guys, now that we're off the David Shaw love. So despite how much I love David Shaw, guys, their running backs, not a single running back on their roster right now has even a 200-yard season under their belt. That just speaks volumes about lack of production. We talked about how terrible their offensive line is from both a rushing perspective, and you have very inexperienced running backs. Come on, 126th in line yards out of 130 teams, and you're telling me that these guys are going to have a good year rushing?
No, it's not doing them any favors at all.
Yeah, I'm not buying it. And then, again, McKee could be a good quarterback. Maybe his numbers, he's still at a 15-7 ratio with that terrible offensive line. So, maybe he's not putting up numbers because he's not working with a lot either. The only real receiver standout they have over there is Elijah Higgins, and he was still under 600 yards. So, McKee's not working with a lot, so I'll give him that. I'll at least give him the benefit of the doubt over there. He's working with a hand tied behind his back as well. When I look at this team holistically, they got one nice transfer, Patrick Fields. That'll help in the secondary. But ultimately, I'm with you guys. This is a big underplay. Stanford, I really think, I would hammer this under. I would confidently bet this under with Stanford. Their schedule is brutal. They might beat Colgate, maybe Cal. They might even lose to Arizona State, guys. They might even lose to Arizona State. Truly, this team is bad. This team is very bad. And they play all the big dogs, man. Just like you said, I can't see them. I cannot see them even sniffing 4 or 5 wins.
I think best case scenario, they win 5 games, but it's the schedule. Them winning 5 games with this schedule would be a very good coaching job. If they got to a bowl game somehow with this schedule, then yeah, that's a hell of a coaching job by David Shaw. So yeah, I'm with you guys. This is a consensus under across the board for the Cardinals.
If they made a bowl game with this team and this schedule, David Shaw should be paraded around like a trophy wife, because that would just be a feat beyond my imagination.
Well, now let's move down here to Colorado. The Buffaloes, they're sitting with a win total of just 3 wins, 3 even on the dot. This thing was up at 3.5.
This is your favorite team,
with my personal money. Yeah, you can still get 3.5 out there, by the way. It's still being hung out there, but Caesars has it down to 3. So Colorado, what's your take on the Buffaloes?
Oh, man. Where do I begin with these guys? I don't even know where to begin, Shoob. I don't even know where to begin. And I'm not going in a good trajectory either. I'm not going in a good trajectory at all.
I don't think any of us are.
This team,
man at the helm.
this
if you're a Colorado team, fan, you might just want to click off.
Yeah, just go ahead and turn it off now, guys. You're not going to like what we have to say. This Colorado team is a 1-11 candidate, 2-win max, maybe even 0-12. I mean, my goodness, like I just said 2-win max, so I'm obviously under. When you look at this, I mean, head coach Carl Dorrell, he's done. I'm sorry, this is your last year, my man. You're gonna get fired. I'm sorry, dude. OC Mike Stanford came in from Minnesota, so maybe they can salvage that offense a little bit. They were 114th in efficiency last year, pretty damn terrible. I mean, what is there to like about this, guys? Even when I look over at their defense, three fourths of their starters in the secondary are freshmen, inexperienced.
Right. Yep.
They are going to get clobbered. I mean, even if some of these guys show out and like play up, like, you know, at a higher level than they're expected to, I just don't see it, guys. QB JT Shrout, I mean, he's shown some signs that he can like develop and become a little bit better. But at the same time, man, he's just working with so much going against him. The O-line is dreadful. The offensive line is 122nd in overall efficiency out of 130 teams. They're not doing themselves any favors here. They're not good in any aspect. You look at their roster; they're not good at anything. And it really sucks. It really sucks. You know, I guess the highlight, if I want to say something nice about these guys, is that they got Baylor transfer RJ Sneed at wide receiver. That should help them maybe a little bit, but not enough to ultimately change my mind about this team. I mean, let's just paint a picture here about how bad their offense is going to be, guys, with their offensive line. Their two top running backs projected for this year, neither one of them averages more than 3.7 yards per carry. That is terrible. That is terrible. This is college, guys. Like, that is terrible. And then their schedule doesn't do them any favors either. Their non-con is brutal.
They got Georgia Tech syndrome here. What's the AD doing?
Their non-con is absolutely
You're Colorado.
brutal.
You're not Clemson. You're Colorado. What are we doing here?
Their non-con assures that they are going to start 0-3 and then lose their first game to UCLA. I promise you, if they don't start 0-4, I'd be absolutely shocked. TCU, Air Force, Minnesota, those are all L's, and I would be shocked if those aren't all embarrassing L's. I mean, I think they're going to lose those games by at least 2 touchdowns, I think. This team I am not high on. Then they're going to go to conference play. They're going to lose to UCLA. I'm calling that right now. They will lose to UCLA. They're going to go play Arizona, which could be a toss-up game, but I'm a little higher on Arizona. I think Arizona beats Colorado.
It's at Arizona too.
Yeah, and it's at Arizona. I think Arizona beats Colorado. Then they get their bye week, and now they've got a chance because they get their bye week, and who do they play? The other team I'm not very high on, Cal, at home. So there's a win right there. I'll be nice. I'll give you a win right there. Oregon State, probably a loss. Arizona State, late season, so maybe there's a shot there, but probably still a loss, honestly, if we're being real here.
Yeah,
Oregon,
we're not being, like, USC, we can't Washington, be just Utah. So in the toilet about Arizona State. Like, it's still they still have a little bit of talent.
That's the thing. Like, I think Arizona State's still going to beat them. Yeah. And then their back end of the schedule is killer, man. Oregon, USC, Washington, Utah, all back to back. Dude, they're going 1-11 max. Like, I would be so shocked. Like, okay, 2. I'll say they win 2 max, but I think 1-11 is more than likely. 0-12 is very possible, especially if the coach gets fired midseason after they inevitably start probably 0-5, because I do think Arizona's going to beat them. I think they start 0-5, and if they don't win that Cal game, I think their coach is gone.
When's the last time a Power 5 team went 0-12? I don't actually know off the top of my head.
I don't know. Was it Kansas?
It probably was Kansas.
Didn't Arizona also go 0-12 like a few years ago?
They might have.
Maybe.
We have to look into that. We'll have to search into our archives.
I'm just food for thought, but this has potential to be that way. Like we said it in the Fade draft. By the way, if you want to watch the Fade draft, go ahead and watch that video. Pretty entertaining. Colorado, not surprisingly, was one of Xan's highlight picks from that draft. So what do you think here, ZKS?
I want to start with this.
Any love for the Buffaloes? Any love?
You nailed it. Can someone tell me the name of Colorado's mascot real quick? Anyone know? Ralphie.
Ralphie, that's right. I knew it was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah.
Get the dang police out there, because it's going to be animal cruelty what they're going to put this Buffalo through this season. Ralphie the Sixth did not have to watch this team. Thank God that certain things are legal in Colorado, because you're going to need a lot of that to watch this team. This team had 9 position coach changes, and I'm going to tell you all what they are just because I want to be that in depth. 9. Here we go. Ready? They had a change at wide receiver coach, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, passing game coordinator, tight end coach, cornerback coach, defensive line coach, and offensive linebacker coach.
And the janitor, too. Don't forget about him.
Who?
The janitor.
Oh, yeah.
I think he came from Arizona State.
I think the water boy transferred out, too.
And somehow Dorrell's still there. And then your AD, clearly he's smoking something. Because how in the world do you schedule TCU, Air Force, and Minnesota and your tough non-con? I mean, you got to be insane. And then Xan, you nailed it with the back half of that schedule, November 5th. Turn it off. Start watching the Broncos. Start watching the Colorado State Rams. I don't know, but you would have to win 4 games between playing UCLA, Cal, Arizona State at home, or trying to beat Arizona and Oregon State on the road. I just don't see it. And I skipped over that. Sorry. That end of the year stretch of just Oregon, USC, Washington, Utah, that's a bloodbath. That is a bloodbath.
That's
and
0-4.
What?
That's 0-4 right there.
Yeah. And I'll say, I know why they scheduled Minnesota. I guess they wanted Mike Sanford to feel at home. But the dude, you don't got Tanner Morgan. And Brendan Rice, who I don't even think was really a stud when he was there, he's not even going to be there because he said, deuces, I'm going to USC. I feel so bad for Ralphie. I mean, this is an under for me. I would be interested in what the odds would be of an 0-12 Buffs team. And I maybe would take that bet, honestly.
As much as we're dumping on in Colorado here, it's still, like, keep in mind, it's very rare for a winless season. That's why I gave it 2 points in the fade draft. Like, going 0-12 is still pretty hard to do. Like, you have to be like Kansas bad to go 0-12.
1-11, baby.
I will say it's the Pac-12. There's certainly some teams here that Colorado is capable of beating, but I'm with you guys. 3 wins, I believe, is the max.
Hey, on a neutral field, guys, Kansas, Colorado, what's the final score?
Ooh, that's a good one.
28-17, Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Because to stay on brand, I got to go with KU. I think
so too, man. I like his 28-17. I think it's going to be kind of like that. Yeah.
I think also with Kansas, you have to factor in the buy-in. The buy-in may not necessarily be there with Durrell. I mean, just looking at the numbers off last year, they are 70th in FBS in returning production off of a 4-8 team. 70th of returning production off a 4-8 team. That's just not good. They returned 6 starters offensively. You guys highlighted a lot of their top skill position players left. They went to other places in the transfer portal. Their best players left. And then defensively, Xan highlighted their secondary could be bombed on all season long. It's going to be pretty poor. Defense only returns 4 starters as a whole. You guys already talked about the schedule. 0-3 in the non-cons, very likely. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that they are going to be a 2-score underdog at Air Force, at least off the numbers that I see at this point. It's going to be a rough year for Colorado, but hey, the Broncos should be pretty good this year. You got Russell Wilson, so I think that's where the attention is going to be focused on. I will say, out of all the fluke games that happened last year, remember Colorado versus Texas A&M?
Of course.
Colorado almost beat A&M last year. But I'm just saying, you want to talk about one of the most fluky games of all of last year? That was one of them, that Colorado somehow that took A&M down to the wire. So I'm with the under. So far, 6 teams in a row, we have consensus from Arizona State down so far. We have 3-way consensus over and under on all these teams, which I am shocked about, considering just how coin flippy a lot of this Pac-12 is at the bottom. But let's move on here. Last but certainly not least, and I actually mean that, I do not believe Arizona is the worst team in this conference, but they have the lowest win total, sitting at 2.5. Very juiced heavily to the over on the sports books, by the way. Head coach Jedd Fisch, he had sort of a year 0 situation last year. Arizona went 1-11 in Jedd Fisch's first season. However, they went 1-4 in 1-possession games. This team was competitive in a lot of games. They were competitive in a lot of their losses, and they played good teams pretty well. Offensively, we were talking about this off camera. We really like the offensive skill position upgrades they're bringing in Tucson this year. Transfer Jaden Delora from Wazoo. He's a massive upgrade at quarterback. That is just by default. I'm a big fan of Delora. Even if he had stayed at Washington State, I still would be high on Washington State, but they obviously got Cam Ward. Delora going to Arizona, I like that a lot. They also got two really good new receivers in four-star transfer Jacob Coing, who was UTEP's leading receiver last year. And they got a true freshman, who I'm about to butcher his name, Tatoria McMillan, who was a 97 grade four-star recruit. Correct me, please.
McMillan?
Yeah, I can't pronounce the guy's name to save my life.
He's also 6'4", man. That dude's an animal.
And he's a true freshman. He's he's in wide receiver Z right now. That guy's going to start immediately. So that's good. See, not all the big name blue chip recruits go to the Georgias and the Clemsons and the Alabamas and the Texas A&Ms. Like, if you're one of those guys and you want to hit the field immediately as an 18-year-old freshman and just be a stud, go to a place like Arizona if you're a 97 grade recruit. This kind of stuff I like to see. I like to see more of this. It'll be really fun to see the guy, what he can do in his first season. And as far as the defense, they return 8 starters. The defense, granted, will still be pretty awful. It was awful last year. I don't really see it improving a whole lot. It'll probably improve marginally. It still will be pretty bad, though. But the offense with Delora and those young receivers, I think the offense got a little bit of upside. You look at their schedule. Truthfully, they also got a little bit of Georgia Tech syndrome. They scheduled very aggressively in the non-con. They scheduled an FCS team, but why'd you have to schedule North Dakota State, man? Of all the FCS programs, why'd you have to schedule North Dakota State? Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose that game. In fact, I think that game is very coin flippy because North Dakota State would be one of the better G5 programs if they were in FBS. But with all that being said, they do have some winnable Pac-12 games. The teams that they got at home, Colorado, as we just highlighted, they got to go at Cal. They got Washington State at home, which if Washington State isn't as good as we project them to be, that could be a winnable game. And then they got Arizona State, of course, last game of the season, that rivalry game there in the desert. They got ASU at home. I think Arizona gets 3 wins. This team plays very hard for Jed Fish. I think this team was better than what their record reflected last season. And I'm liking this over. This is a team that will play hard all throughout the season. Maybe they start winning those close games. They could be low-key kind of fun to watch, at least offensively. Could be interesting to watch. This is certainly a program long-term to watch, especially when they're able to get recruits like McMillan. Give me the over. I hit this with my personal money a while ago, and I'm feeling pretty confident about it.
That's all I need. Get me 3. I hate this non-con. It's not as crazy as what they're doing over there in Boulder, but I don't like it at all.
It's still pretty crazy.
Yeah. San Diego State, Miss State, or North Dakota State, a national FCS powerhouse. I hate that. But I think they can find a way for one. And by one, it'd probably have to be San Diego State. I think they can find a way to win one of those. And even if they don't, like you said, Shoob, in conference, Colorado, Cal, Arizona State in the Territorial Cup.
They can win 2 of those. They can win 2 of those.
I like their chances of getting 2 of those split in the non-con. And I really just want to hammer on Delora again. I'm delirious for Delora. He ended 2021 with no interceptions and 72 passing attempts in his final 3 games of the year. Funny enough, guess who his only passing touchdowns came against? He threw 4 of them. Arizona. So funny enough, it came against Arizona. And I do want to say, Dora ran some brief legal trouble in Pullman. He got past that and out of that. If he can keep it, and everybody makes mistakes, it's not an indictment on the kid whatsoever. So I believe with Dora as a growing and maturing as a man, if he can come in here ready to go, he already elevates the level of your offense. And I think he goes out with this team and gets you 3 dubs. Give me over on the Wildcats. Let's go and have something to be excited about out in the desert in the great state of Arizona.
That should be the rally call for this season. # delirious for Delora. I like that. That's the over 3 wins rally call for Arizona.
Drunk on Delora could work too.
Hey, those 2 shirts are available on ZKS's website.
Yeah, merch link below.
But okay. I'm with you guys. I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. Over on
Consensus.
Arizona.
I love
Consensus,
to see it.
because all the same reasons. As Shoob alluded to, we talked about this off camera, how much we like those offensive pieces. And another offensive piece that we didn't mention, guys, Arizona plays a 2 tight end set. They like to use their tight ends heavily, and they also brought in a talented 4-star tight end who's expected to play in that 2 tight end set named Keon Burnett. And honestly, man, they're just getting more talented on that side of the ball. They're stacking. I am high on Jane DeLora, just like you guys. He had 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 2,800 yards. I mean, for me, it's all about the ratios. He's close to a 3-1 ratio there. And I think they are putting him in a good position to succeed here because they are giving him weapons. Granted, I'm not a big fan of their offensive line. It could use some work, but at least it's not as bad as Stanford's offensive line. I really think this team, between San Diego State, Miss State, North Dakota State, they could very well start 0-3. That could happen. But I think their toss-up game is North Dakota State, just because North Dakota State is an FCS school. North Dakota State may be dominant at that level, but if you look at recruiting, North Dakota State's not bringing in the players that, these Division I teams are. They're just very well coached. And so that's, from a talent perspective, they should be able to beat North Dakota State, but that's going to be a good game. I would not be shocked if they lost. And then they're lucky because after that, they've got Cal and Colorado. It's kind of gets easy. And if they can win 2 of those games, if they can win both those games, then this over is very, very much in play. Because, again, North Dakota State, I mean, there's a chance that these guys start 3-2. There's a chance these guys start 3-2, and then all the Arizona fans are riding high, thinking like, oh, wow, it's going to be a great season. Hold your horses, guys. Hold your horses. You got the over. It's already a great season. Don't get greedy now. Just look at your schedule. You got Oregon, Washington. Then you got your bye before you got to play USC, Utah, UCLA, and Wazoo. And you already know how I feel about Wazoo. Man, that's tough. But, hey, another bright side. If they're not quite at the over yet, at the end of the season, they get Arizona State last game of the year. And if the bottom is falling out, I mean, just to harp on Arizona State and to beat them with a dead horse, or beat a dead horse with a stick here, that's a winnable game.
I'll tell you what, if I could get early lines on that game right there, Arizona against Arizona State, give me Arizona.
Well,
Rivalry games, a territorial cup. I like Arizona to win that game. And you want a really bold prediction. And this is coming from a guy that doesn't like to go too bold that often.
This is coming from the most conservative guy I know when it comes to predictions.
If I had to put money on something that's pretty bold, I would say Arizona finishes with a better record in the Pac-12 than Arizona State. And that includes head-to-head.
That's very bold. I think Arizona...
Give me the odds on that.
I think Arizona maximum, their best overall season is 4 wins. I see 4 wins.
That'd be amazing.
Best chance.
So that also has to include a head-to-head, obviously.
Yeah,
head-to-head
exactly. Yeah. No, I'm counting that. I think, so let's say things go their way. North Dakota State, Cal, Colorado, ASU. I think that's 4 wins. If they get really lucky and they snipe San Diego State in the first week.
I'm talking about like Pac-12 conference standings, not non-conference. So just straight up Pac-12 conference play. I think that they finish higher than Arizona State. And by higher, I mean, I think they probably finish with an equal Pac-12 conference record, but they have the head-to-head over ASU. I think they beat ASU in the Territorial Cup, and they have that head-to-head tiebreaker.
That's foreseeable.
Give me some odds on that, please. I will take that as my bold prediction flyer here. Just one of those random flyers that I feel pretty good about in the Pac-12.
Shoob, you would definitely get plus odds on that. You would definitely get plus
absolutely.
Odds on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with that being said, that's all the time that we have for you today. Thank you guys for tuning in. ZKS, thank you for dropping in today and being a part of this win total conversation. We appreciate you guys for tuning in today. If you like this and dig this, feel free to share it with your friends. Comment if you have any just information or that you want to share with us, or your opinions about your team, what we covered, what we didn't cover, what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it. Give us your perspective so we can kind of see where you're coming from a fan-based perspective. And with that being said, feel free to check us out on podcasts too. We post weekly on Apple Podcasts. And with that being said, this is Xan Shoob signing out. We really appreciate you guys for being here. Have a good one.
Hashtag rescue Ralphie.
Rescue Ralphie. Oh, get those shirts going, man.
Delirious
for
DeLora,
baby.
Delirious for DeLora. Let's get the shirt printed. It's ready.